We are now able to bring you last week's Tuesday file, following successful legal action by RTE. The Silent Scream reports on one family's experience of child sex abuse.
Like, he would call you in from playing with your friends. He would rape you, and then he'd send you back out to play.
He'd say to you, if you let me in, it'd be easier, when he was having intercourse.
I remember really thinking that God knew I was bad. That's why he let Daddy hurt.
And I thought he was God, or he was the devil, but he was one of them.
He was very, very religious. He was mad into religion.
He turned it all around and made it your fault.
You always feel horrible, like in school and all. I always felt real dirty.
I hated him, but yet there was a part of me loved him.
You're somehow able to switch off, to disconnect, to believe that it didn't actually happen.
I blame myself as well for not killing myself, for not committing suicide, because I hadn't got the guts.
Child sexual abuse is a reality in this country, but it's a reality that even those in authority might like to deny. Because of religious and other cultural sensitivities, the state has been reluctant to involve itself in the family unit. But the level of child sexual abuse demands perhaps that the state should involve itself more. In 1989, the latest year for which figures are available, there were 10 confirmed cases of child sexual abuse for every week of the year. Many of those children were infants, abused from the cot and the cradle. The victims are often slow to speak of their experiences. Some children even believe that the abuse was deserved. God knew I was bad, said one child. That's why he let Daddy do it. The 1991 Child Care Act was widely seen as a progressive piece of legislation, but the resources to help abused children have still to be put in place. A paper commitment is of little use to those already at risk. Tonight, one family, through their honesty and their courage, forces to face a reality which some viewers may find disturbing.
Sometimes I used to think it happened to everybody, and then other times I felt like it happened to nobody else but me.
I knew there was something wrong because I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. But at the same time, I thought that was the way everybody was.
I thought I loved him. I think I spent most of my life trying to convince myself I loved him and that he loved me. We imagined he was huge. It's only now I can see him as a small man, but we actually remember growing up, you know, as a baby you look up and I suppose your mother and father looked gigantic to you. Well, he never actually shrunk, even though I grew up. He looked gigantic all my life.
Well, he could clear a space for himself. Like in a house with 10 children, you'd imagine that there'd be somebody in every room, you know, at any given time. But he could organise it in such a way that you would be the only one upstairs, or you would be the only one in a certain room at a certain time.
Everything was a bribe. If your father had sex with you, you got money for it. With me, that's the way it worked. It was like, that was the way of shutting you up, keeping you happy, keeping, so that you thought you were okay, that there was nothing wrong. He was great, he was a provider, he gave you everything you ever wanted. If you wanted clothes, you got them. If you wanted toys, you got them. And we had the best of toys, and we had the first ones out on the market, and we were the first to get everything. So I figured we were all right.
If I did anything to upset him, he wouldn't take it out on me. He'd take it out on the kids. So I had to be a buffer, and I had to try and cushion one against the other, and not to upset him, so he wouldn't upset the kids.
He always threatened us from a very young age never to tell anybody that it was our secret. He told us that my mother would leave us and we'd all have to live with him. And I don't know, I never told my sisters. I mean, I slept with them. We were all in the one room.
Like, as I said, he made a point of making sure my mother was never available to us. She was busy, like, between, you can imagine, like, with 10 children, I don't know how she did it, taking care of all of us and working as well. She wasn't really available to us emotionally. And of course, living with him, you'd have to have some idea of the type of man he was. Emotionally, she had herself protected. She had built up such a wall that we couldn't get to her either. And you really only had him. So, as bad as he was all you had.
Anything I thought was horrible, I buried. I tried, you know, kept it down, buried. A lot of little boxes in my head. I put all the bad things in them and locked them away. There are lots, but it's a lot I can't remember. I don't want to, you know, I'm afraid. No, I hadn't minded them at all, and that made me feel terrible to think. I mean, if had anybody told me, I could have stopped it years ago. I mean, whatever it took, I would have stopped that. The way kids tell you things that you don't hear, you know, they give you signs and messages that you don't hear, because who'd look for that, you know?
I was about 6 years of age, and he used to lie me on the bed and rub himself against me, take out my pants and rub himself against me. I remember he tried to put himself into me at that time, and I couldn't stop crying. And I remember that evening he came up to me when I was going to bed. He told me, like, listen, I have to break this skin, and when I break this skin, it won't hurt you anymore. Now, he said, I'm going to give you a sleeping tablet, because that way you'll be asleep when I'm near you and you won't feel the pain. And when I break the skin, it's going to be wonderful, and I'm going to buy you a bike. He got very annoyed with me because I couldn't stop crying. And he slapped me on the face, and he picked me up and he threw me across the room. And I literally slid down the wall into the bed. And I remember at the time thinking, God, please God, help me not to disappoint him. I was so upset that I disappointed him. I had let him down, and I thought he wouldn't love me if I let him down. And please God, will you please I thought God at that time didn't like me. But I thought I just wanted to please him so that he'd love me.
You would try to avoid him. Like, we used to go to the toilet in twos. You know, like at night time, if you wanted to go to the toilet, we'd go in twos because you had to pass through his bedroom to go to the toilet. But like, nothing seemed to work. On the way back up, he would call one of us. And you were caught anyway. He would call you out of bed, out of his sleep, to massage his feet or to massage his legs or whatever. And he would get us out, a few of us out, and then he would dismiss one at a time, and the last person there was usually raped.